Nobody has it. The great transcendentalists thus describe the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the pure devotees deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond these features. Purport. The Lord is not only the creator and destroyer of the material manifestations of his different energies. He is more than a simple creator and destroyer, for there is his feature of Ananda, or his pleasure feature. This pleasure feature of the Lord is understood by the pure devotees only, and not by others. The impersonalist is satisfied simply by understanding the all-pervasive all-pervasive influence of the Lord. This is called Brahman realization. Greater than the impersonalist is the mystic who sees the Lord situated in his heart as Paramatma, the partial representation of the Lord. But there are pure devotees who take part in the direct pleasure, Ananda, potency of the Lord, by factual reciprocation of loving service. The Lord in his abode, called the Vaikuntha planets, which are eternal manifestations, always remains with his associates and enjoys transcendental loving services by his pure devotees in different transcendental humors. The pure devotees of the Lord thus undergo a practice of that devotional service to the Lord during the manifestation of the creation, and take full advantage of the manifestation by qualifying themselves to enter into the kingdom of God. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this. Bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tattataha tatomam tattato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. By development of pure devotional service, one can factually know the Lord as he is, and thus be trained in the bona fide service of the Lord, and be allowed to enter into the direct association of the Lord in any capacity. The highest glorious association with the Lord is made possible in the planet of Goloka Vrindavan, where Lord Krishna enjoys himself with the gopis and his favorite animals, the Surabhi cows. A description of the transcendental land of Krishna is given in the Brahma Samhita, which is considered by Lord Chaitanya to be the most authentic literature in this connection. Itam bhavena katito Bhagavan Bhagavattama Netam bhavena hi puram Drastum arhanti suraya. The great transcendentalists thus describe the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the pure devotees deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond these features. So, in the past few days, we have been discussing how Krishna is the supreme source of all creation, maintenance, and annihilation. These features or functions of creation, maintenance, and annihilation are going on under Krishna's direction by Lord Brahma, who's in charge of the mode of goodness, Lord Vishnu, who's in charge of the mode of goodness, Lord Brahma, who's in charge of the mode of passion, and Lord Shiva, who's in charge of the mode of ignorance. And by the influence of the Supreme Lord, all of his energies are manifesting automatically. And thus the whole creation is going on in a very proper fashion. Now this understanding is important when we want to understand something about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. First, we have to understand the basic elements of what makes the Supreme. That is why we talk about these features. And we also talk about the Purusha avatars, those manifestations of Vishnu, who are responsible for the creation of this universe by breathing, like Mahavishnu. From his breath, all the universes come out. And when he breathes in again, all the universes are destroyed. Then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enters into each and every universe and is this cause of Lord Brahma taking birth. And Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who's in the heart of every living entity and in every atom, manifested throughout the whole creation, holding it together and giving remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, and so many things. So we find that to understand Krishna properly, one must understand him from the point of view philosophically. One must understand him from the philosophical point of view, and from the point of view of how he causes this whole manifestation to appear and go on and be finished at the end. Now, there is a certain class of man who likes to talk about Krishna, but doesn't like to talk about the Purusha avatars, doesn't like to talk about the Guna avatars, doesn't like to talk about Krishna's manifestations and how he is causing everything to go on within this material world. Such persons, they are called Prakrita Sahajyas. Prakrita Sahajya means they like to talk about Radha, Krishna, and the Gopis, and the eternal affairs of Krishna in the spiritual world like that. But they don't like to talk about the Purusha avatars, or the Guna avatars, or the influence of the modes of material nature, or the way in which the living entity becomes bewildered, or how he is an illusion, or how he must act in proper transcendental austerities to get out of Maya. This they're not interested in. They like to talk about those activities of Krishna, which could possibly be seen in a material life. In other words, they also would like to run around with young girls in the middle of the night. So therefore they think that this is very nice. So when they talk about Krishna, they think he's just like them. He also wants to run around with young girls in the middle of the night, without understanding that they are like Krishna. Because Krishna has such propensities, then we also develop them, but in a very small way. So, to understand properly Krishna, you must first understand his feature as the Supreme. Then, after understanding him as the Supreme, then it's possible to understand his pastimes. Without understanding this feature of the Supreme, the way in which he works in this material world, or causes everything to occur, although he himself may not perform work, the way in which the nature, material nature, emanates from him, all these things must be understood properly before one becomes qualified to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his transcendental feature, the Lord of Vrindavan. Therefore, one has to study these things, and we do. That is why we study these Bhagavad Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam has many different forms of the philosophy there, from the lowest understanding up to the highest understanding. All are included in Bhagavatam. That is why the title of this chapter is Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Srimad Bhagavatam is certainly the answer to all questions. Whatever question one may have, somewhere in Bhagavatam there's an answer. That is why it is stated in the beginning of Bhagavatam, Dharma projita kaitavocha paramona matsaranam satam tejam vastavam atrapastu shividam tapatayam munanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimva Paraya Ishvara Satyavridhi Avarujate Sakitivi Shashushabhi Stakshana. In the beginning, the second verse of the Bhagavatam, the particular glories of Bhagavatam are described. Dharma projita, kaitavo. All other forms of cheating practices are thrown out of Srimad Bhagavatam. That includes the desire of the living entity to merge into the oneness of the Supreme. That includes the living entities trying to jump into these spiritual pastimes without understanding anything of the actual nature of the Lord. That includes the living entity using this spiritual life to become very expert material enjoyer, to go to the heavenly planets and enjoy in a very expert way. It includes all forms of other speculated religiosity. Therefore, Krishna allows the living entity to get the best facility for going back to the spiritual world by instigating Srila Vyasadeva to compose this Srimad Bhagavatam. So Vyasadeva, when he composes Bhagavatam, he does it in such a way that all cheating practices, all these so-called shortcuts, which bring one to various forms of mystic processes or fruitive activities, etc., they're all kicked out of Srimad Bhagavatam. Prohibited. They may not enter. Because Bhagavatam is meant for the topmost class of transcendentalists. Paramon, Imatsaranam, Satam. Satam refers to the pure devotees of the Lord. They're called Sat. That means the eternal devotees. Those who are not ordinary persons in the material sense, but are Sat. Those persons who actually know what is eternality. They have tasted the eternal, therefore they have no longer the desire for the material, temporary things. So there are the Paramahamsa class of men. A Hamsa refers to a swan. And as we have heard, swans have one particular ability which makes them very special and unique amongst birds. First of all, before we get to that point, swans never will go in a dirty place. If the lake is not clean, if there are not many nice flowers and other things, the swans will not go there. You don't find the swans in a dirty lake. You only find these swans in a clean lake. Now, as when you want to put birds in dirty places, then the crows come, or the ducks. They don't care if it's dirty or not. In fact, they like dirtiness. They may also be, the crows, they don't like clean places at all. The ducks, they go to a clean place, dirty place, they have no brain. But the swans, who we are concerned with, they will only go to the clean places. And when they're there, they have this capacity that if milk is mixed in water, we personally have no way of understanding what is milk and what is water. For us, it has become like a thin milk. We cannot see the difference. But the swan can drink the water and sift out the milk without taking the water. So that means even from something which is not exactly pure anymore, the swans know how to take the essence. That's what it means. That's the example. Similarly, it is stated that the devotee knows how to take gold from a filthy place. Let's say you've got a pile of garbage, and in this pile of garbage you've got all kinds of dirty things. But there's a piece of gold in there. So what fool would say, oh, I'm not going to touch the gold because it's in a pile of garbage? Everybody will immediately grab the gold and go wash it off. After all, after it's washed, it's gold still. Gold cannot be contaminated by garbage. When you wash it, it is very beautiful. Polish it up, it's still nice, valuable like anything. So the devotee, it is described, knows how to take the essence from something which is filthy, gold from a dirty place. Even he's in the material world. He doesn't look at the material world. He's not interested in the material world. He's reaching out for that which you can get from the material world, which is Krishna consciousness. When we are engaged here in this material world, we are using this material world as a stepping stone to go back to the spiritual world. So that's called taking gold from a dirty place. Or in another saying, making the best use of a bad bargain. To be in this material world is not a very good bargain. You know, bargain when you go to the store and they put something on sale and it's a very good deal, very cheap price, so you take it. That's called a bargain. But this material world is a bad bargain. It offers you all kinds of so-called facilities as if it was very nice, but actually, the material world's terrible. Therefore, one who's got this material body in this material world should learn how to make the best use of it. In other words, we're stuck here, okay. But now let's make the best use of our bad bargain, this body, by bringing us back home, back to Godhead, in pure Krishna consciousness. So, another feature of now, of course, we were talking about swans. Paramahamsa refers to that devotee of the Lord who only is interested in the essence of spiritual life, that which is given by Krishna, about Krishna, and which is meant for the satisfaction of Krishna. Paramahamsa class. And one of the qualifications of the Paramahamsa class is nirmatsara, not envious. A non-envious person will be very much eager to satisfy the Supreme without any personal consideration. The envious personalities, they have so many personal considerations. They want things like this, they want things like that, they don't want others to get a better position than they. In other words, personal consideration is there. What counts for me is the most important, and other things, they are not so important. But nirmatsara, I'm in the middle of war. Nirmatsara, the non-envious person, is one who simply wants to offer everything to Krishna and nothing else. So, Bhagavatam is meant for such classes of men. Now that does not mean, of course, if you are still envious, you cannot read Bhagavatam. Because then we'd all pack it up and go do something else. But it means that by reading Bhagavatam, you become a topmost class of man. And when you become a topmost class of man, then Bhagavatam is meant for you. There will be no other literature which will satisfy one so much as the Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? It is stated, Vejam Vastavam Machapastu Shividam Tapatrain Mulanam. The Bhagavatam, the knowledge in the Bhagavatam, separates fiction from fact, or rather fact from fiction. It separates temporary things which have no substance in reality and the factual existence which is eternal. So that one may see, even within this world of illusion, that which has real substance. Because although the illusion is there, the illusion takes its birth in real substance. In other words, it is a creation of Brahman. of the Supreme. But the illusion is, in and of itself, not real, in the sense that it is not what it appears to be. The illusion of this material world is considered to be non-existent because it is not what it appears to be. That does not mean that it does not exist. It exists, but not in the way in which we think it exists. The example is given of a rope and a snake. If it's a little dark out and one can't see clearly, if he sees a rope laying on the ground, he may think it's a snake. You know, in India, even today, if you go on these paths, there are many snakes who are very poisonous. So people are very much disturbed if they see a snake, because you can get bit by a snake and be finished. Here also you have snakes like that? Not so many. Not supposed. Yeah. But in India there were, in the past, not even many in India anymore, but in the past, there were many such snakes. So people were very much disturbed. So if it was a little dark out, and there was a rope just laying there, and it was coiled in a certain way, one may think it's a snake, and be very much full of fear. You know, usually you go like that. Oh no, a snake. Why? Because the snake has the potency to bite and kill you. So, the fear of the snake is real. The ability of the snake to kill you is real. But the illusion is that this thing you saw is not a snake, it's a rope. So, although there are many real factors there, your fear is real, your seeing something is real, the fact that a snake can kill you is real. But because this is not a snake, the whole thing is considered unreal. It has no real existence. So, similarly, the material world is not real in the same way. That does not mean it doesn't exist. It certainly exists. But the form in which it exists is not what we think it is. It's like we see this body. It also exists. But it is not me. The body is not me. It's just some material elements in which I have entered. And now the body has life because I'm here. So the mistake is that we look at the body and think, yes, this is us. This is the mistake. The soul is life. That's real. The body is existent in the material sense. It's a material element. That's real. But to think that the body is life, or the body is me, this is false. And so the Bhagavatam not only helps us distinguish and separate what is the real soul from the body. That was already done in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the ABC of spiritual life. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the DEF. So in Bhagavad Gita, distinguishing between the body and the soul, that was already done. But Bhagavatam takes that further and shows us how we can separate the so-called reality of the material body as being life or being us from the actual reality that we simply enter into this body and give it life. And there is no more understanding necessary than that. And not only that, but we take this whole material universe to be factual. But factually, this whole material universe, although real, is simply a temporary manifestation of the illusory energy of the Supreme. Therefore, it does not last. It has no eternal existence. Simply manifesting for some temporary period of time. Therefore it's called asat. That which is not real. So sometimes people become confused. We think this bottle here is real. Well, of course it's real. I can take it, hit you over the head. Then you'll know it's real. But this bottle will not last. Because, in due course of time, it will be broken to pieces and it will deteriorate. Therefore, we cannot call this bottle sat. Sanskrit. The problem is that we're translating from Sanskrit to English and English to other languages too. So it becomes confusing. But the word sat refers to an existence which is always there. Asat refers to things which exist, or things which don't exist, or exist only in the mind. That's also true. But things which are temporary. Asat refers to the temporary manifestation, and Sat refers to the eternal manifestation. So the Bhagavatam is continuously separating the Sat from the Asat. Thus one knows, Vijayam Vijam Chayas Tatvedo Vayam Saha Vinishena Vijam Kirta. The separation of ignorance and knowledge, that which is nescience, dead matter, dull ignorance, and that which is pure transcendental knowledge. These things are separated. Bhagavatam extract these things. Just like if you want to take gold, you will find gold in various forms. I know of one form of gold which is found within the rock of quartz rock. So to get at that quartz rock, you've got to chip through the earth coverings. You have to chop the quartz, and then by chopping and digging like this, you get to the point of finding the gold. The gold is within the quartz. So one has to know how to mine that as well. You have to extract the gold from the quartz. That's the mining technique. After all, you can't dig out the whole mountain. You take out this and take out this and extract it. So, Bhagavatam acts like this extraction agency by which the essence of spiritual life may be extracted from that which is dull and ignorant in this material world. And that knowledge is so nice because it extracts or it removes the threefold ignorance or suffering conditions, tapachaya. It is stated, tapachaya mula. Mula refers to root. The tapachaya refers to the three suffering conditions which everybody has to experience. What are these suffering conditions? Well, we all know them very well. But they are categorized as follows in the Vedas. The atmika miseries, which everybody can experience. The body and the mind gives us trouble. Always, continuous, non-stop, the body and the mind give us trouble. Only sometimes we enjoy one particular sense so much that we forget about the trouble. I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody's sick, or let's say somebody's got pains in his body. Everybody has pains in his body all the time. But when you're eating, and it's very tasty, then you forget about everything. You may even have a big headache, but if you're eating something good, forget about it. And after you're finished, then you remember it. Pain comes there. Because when the sense becomes very much attracted to something that's very nice, then all the other problems disappear temporarily. That's actually what sense gratification is. It enables us to concentrate the mind on a particular sense, and thus we forget about all the other pains which are there. So, that's not so great, but the illusion of the material world has it. It's very nice. So, the problem is, adhyatmika miseries are always there. Otherwise, why do we always move around so much? Or not only that, but we're just busy suffering in different conditions. If you just think about your body right now, not that we want you to do this often, but if right now, just for the sake of an experiment, think about your body and consider where it hurts in different places. Plenty, no? All over the place. You just concentrate on all the different parts of the body. You find, oh, it hurts here, it hurts there, it hurts the other place. It's itching here, and all this one is itching there, and we gotta move this thing there, and then we gotta move this back. Sometimes there's a form of insanity where a person is simply just all the time experiencing his body. He can't get out of his body. There's other forms of insanity where one is so much into the mind, he can't even experience the body. He's so much lost in the mind, somebody can be slapping him in the face, he doesn't even know it. There are plenty of such persons in the madhouse. They're lost in the mind. So, there are various forms of trouble. But we always try to solve these troubles by making some kind of sense gratification, which enables us to forget about these troubles. That's not sufficient. Anyway, the adhyatmika business we just described. Adibhautika, when other living entities give us trouble, like when the mosquito comes and uses us for dinner, or the fly comes and uses us for a landing place, or when the other persons come and call us bad names, number one, or they slap us in the face, or they just bump into us, or some little germ comes and decides now he's going to get you sick. So many problems they come from other living entities. Then, the adidaitika, problems that come from the demigods. So today it seems like the demigods are not so disturbed. So they've given us a nice day. But previously, all kinds of bad weather, freezing cold, horrible, nobody likes it, terrible. Or in some places, volcanoes are blowing up. In other places, earthquakes are going. In other places, floods are going. In other places, famines are going. In other places, droughts are going. Adidaitika, natural disturbances. When comets come to make everything crazy. Adidaitika. They come from other authorities. For instance, demigods. So these tapatraya, 3 forms of material suffering are there. And Momolanam, the Bhagavatam roots them out. Just like if you have a weed. So everybody knows that if you let the weed just grow, and you just snip the top of the weed, take away all, just even get very down into the earth, and snip it, it'll grow back again. So long as the root is there, the plant will continue to grow. That's the nature of weeds. They just love to grow no matter what. And the only way to stop them is you have to chop it out at the root. Chop out the root, then no longer will it grow. Therefore, sometimes it is described that the living entity will try to perform various types of prayaschita. Prayaschita means atonement. He will act to relieve himself from past sinful activities. He will try to free himself from all of those sinful activities. So he tries to make atonement like that. That now I will not commit any more sinful activities, or I will at least try to relieve myself of all the suffering of previous sinful activities. So I will do something. So some pain for myself or whatever. But this doesn't work. Because even if one repents all of this sinful activity, then immediately starts them up again as soon as he can. Just like in the Catholicism, there's this confession. So you go when you make confession, and you say, I did very bad, I did all these terrible things. So then they say, okay, so you say some prayer here, put some money in the box, and you get free, you've done some penance now, no more sinful reactions. One says, very good. Then he goes out of the church and immediately starts the sinning activity again. This is called professional sin. Immediately, as soon as he gets the opportunity, again he starts it up. Because this is not a process for relieving one of these desires. The root is still there. Even if it were possible, by such a technique, to cut off all of the resultant reactions, because the root is still there, they'll just grow again. And it will always go on. What's the use of such process? Maharaj Parikshit called this Manye Kunjara Sochara. He considered it the bathing of an elephant. Because the elephants go in the water, and they take a very nice bath. A lot quieter than that. And they throw water over themselves this way and that way. Then when they come out of the water, they're all very nice and clean. But elephants don't like to be clean. Therefore, they take their nose and stick it in the dirt, suck up a lot of dust, and then blow it all over the body. So it's called Manye Kunjara Sochara. You take a nice bath, get very clean, immediately come out of the water and roll in the dirt. So such processes of atonement are like this, where you maybe perform some activities and get free temporarily from some reaction, but then immediately roll in the dirt of the material nature again. So what's the use? The pure waste of time. Again and again, get clean, make dirt, get clean, make dirt. There's no end to it. And therefore people stay in the material world continuously, even if they're trying to be pious. But if one is engaged in the process of following the Bhagavata Vidhi, this means the process of the Bhagavatam, or the pure devotee, then tapachaya unmulana, the miseries and the causes of misery of the material nature are uprooted. They're uprooted. So, these miserable conditions are uprooted. Just pulled right out. No longer can they manifest in any way to create trouble. In other words, the living entity gets freedom. Therefore, it's called Shivadam, very auspicious. Very auspicious, because it finishes off the living entity's attachment to this material world. Therefore, Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Kute, this book was written by Mahamuni Vyasadeva, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Kim Va Paraya. What need is there of any other literature? Everything's given in Bhagavatam. Therefore, the Bhagavatam goes progressively, gradually, through the stages of the different forms of the material energy, the way in which that energy is relating with the Supreme from all points of view, until one becomes very expert in this transcendental philosophy, and at the end, he gets Krishna Lila, Krishna's pastimes, in the 10th canto. After he's gone through the first 9 cantos, and he's become very expert at this philosophy of Krishna consciousness, he gets to the 10th canto, and there he meets Krishna face to face. It is stated the Bhagavatam is like the form of the Lord. And the first cantos are like going from the lotus feet of the Lord gradually upwards. And when you get to the 10th canto, you are at the lotus face of the Lord. So, we don't jump to the 10th canto. We don't just jump straight to the 10th canto. No. Because by jumping like this, one is doing monkey jumping. Monkey jumping, just jumping from tree to tree, but with no understanding of anything higher than that. Monkey jumping. You jump to the 10th canto. So what? Now one is there reading Krishna's pastimes. Means nothing. Or if it does mean something, it says here, Krishna is enjoying with young girls. That I can understand. What kind of understanding is this? Krishna is the source of all these young girls. Just like once Indra tried to bewilder Narayan Rishi in his Bhadivika ashram from all of his austerities, because Indra gets envious when mystics become very powerful, because he thinks that they'll take away my position as king of heaven. So he sent some society girls from the heavenly planet. But Narayan Rishi took one look at these girls and started laughing. So you think these are beautiful girls? And then he created from his own power girls who were 1,000 times more beautiful than those girls, who were so beautiful they were bewildering everybody, including Indra. So, although one may try to say, yes, Krishna here may be influenced by these young girls, that's ridiculous. These young girls were created by him in that way. He's the source of this. And we are busy here in the material world enjoying as a perverted reflection of that original desire that's there in the Supreme. Here in the material world, nobody's very beautiful. Anyway, after all, the fragrance of the bodies of the heavenly damsels is so nice that for miles around everything's fragrant. Here in the material world, the fragrance of the bodies makes everything stinky for some feet. For some meter, let's say, 2 meters. And everything's stinky. That's the nature of our bodies, isn't it? Therefore we need so many perfumes. Everywhere perfume. Let's face it, the body stinks. So what to speak of in the spiritual world, those girls are beyond the slightest comparison to the girls of the spiritual world. But just to be fair, the boys of the spiritual world are far beyond the comparison of therefore, nobody should be thinking that anybody here in this material world is very great. We're all just little tiny, like little ants crawling around this material world, looking for a piece of sugar. The ants, they love sugar. If they can get their little ant feet on some sugar, then immediately they become intoxicated. And you'll notice if you put some sugar, that wherever it is, the ants find it. Even if you put it on the roof, you will find ants up there a little later, bringing that sugar down. How they find it, I have no idea. They have mystic power. There may be an ant nowhere near the roof. There may not be an ant on the whole house. But if you put one piece of sugar on the roof, by mystic power, one ant will find it out. And he will get there, somehow or another. Don't ask how. And then he will bring all of his friends. They'll all come together and start bringing that sugar wherever it is. And then they have a feast. Then they start eating that sugar. Then you see the ants, they all fall over. Because they're all drunk. For the ant, sugar acts just like for us alcohol. Then the ants all start falling over. Drunk. For a while. Very intoxicated. They love it. So that's what we are doing here in this material world. We are searching after a little bit of sense gratification. Searching really hard how to get some enjoyment. And then we get it, Then we're, very nice, boom, we fall over drunk. And then we think, this is the life. But it's no different than the ants. The ants also work very hard and make very nice things. And then they try to enjoy like that. And then boom, they fall over drunk. It's the material world. Everybody is eager for intoxication. Everybody is eager for some sex life. So for a few minutes, one is thinking that he's the Lord of the whole creation. He's the supreme enjoyer. He's the supreme controller. And afterwards, oh, so many problems. And everybody's eager to eat the dead, rotting animals' bodies. This is dead. Eating meat is just eating dead bodies, corpses, carcasses, rotting carcasses, dragged here and there. And we are eating this and thinking, very nice. It's the training of the material world. Therefore, one who has the higher taste in spiritual life will give up all of these lower tastes immediately. He will not want to be absorbed in these lower tastes in the material world, and will be engaged in the higher taste of serving Krishna in the transcendental world. Then he will have a taste of Krishna directly. He will experience Krishna. And that higher taste is beyond all relationship or all even knowledge of the material world. Therefore it is stated here in this verse. The great transcendentalists thus describe the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means all those who are sages, saintly persons, they're looking for understanding the higher transcendental nature. They describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this way. But the pure devotees here deserve to see more glorious things in transcendence beyond these features. In other words, if you're a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, you deserve more. And you get it. You get to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead directly in His transcendental form as Krishna. 2 arms, holding the flute, playing a very beautiful melody. Most transcendental, beautiful feature, which immediately makes one stunned. Now we cannot understand. Because our senses are not capable of appreciating Krishna fully. Our senses see something that's also very nice. But we cannot directly experience Krishna because our senses are not purified like that. But when our senses are purified, then we'll be able to understand the transcendent Lord in all beautiful, glorious features. Right now it's not possible. Therefore we read Srimad Bhagavatam. Because by studying Bhagavatam, we come to that platform of deserving to understand more. That which is beyond this philosophical understanding of Krishna's feature as the source or controller. We get to the point of understanding the original form of the Supreme Personality of God and engage in transcendental loving service with Him directly. That is very nice. When we are engaged in serving Krishna purely in transcendental bliss, that is very nice. That is the feature of the Lord which we are all very eager, or should be eager, to appreciate. Therefore we are studying Bhagavatam and going through systematically the whole book, verse after verse, so that we may be able to understand more and more all of the features of the Absolute and develop our pure love for God. Are there any questions? If there are questions, Bhagavatam will answer. All questions.
I'd like to know what is actually piety in this age of Kali. Is there any piety at all? Because everything is so degraded, religion.
Piety is not such an advanced term. If you just do good to others, or you follow the prescribed rules and regulations of your status in the varnashram system, or you make an offering now and then, even if it's not filled with love, it's piety.
There is no varnashram either.
If one just acts properly, always cares for others, doesn't usurp or exploit the facilities of the material nature, and makes some offering to God or the demigods, it's piety. It's not very advanced. But at least it's better than impiety.
But devotees are also pious.
Of course, we're the most pious. But that's not what we advertise. We don't come around and say, we're the most pious, you should therefore forget it. We don't say that. Piety is material terminology. We say, we are engaged in Krishna's service. We should engage in Krishna's service too. Whether you're pious or impious, it doesn't matter. Were you very pious before you became a devotee? Was anybody here very pious before you became a devotee? I doubt it. Maybe somebody was something, not a bad person, I don't know. And most of us were completely impious. Totally impious. Therefore, it doesn't matter whether you're pious or impious. If you start serving Krishna and engage in Krishna's service, you become the most pious. But that's a byproduct. That's not even very important. Yes?
Spiritual consciousness religion also?
No, it is not a religion. Because we are not a belief. This is a science. A religion which doesn't have any scientific philosophy is mere sentimentality. And that's what mainly people think of religion. They think of it as sentiment. If you can't answer a question, you say, just believe. And their philosophy is not logical. It's called dogma. You just accept it, and that's it. And you have faith. That's religion by the modern definition. And science, that's the opposite. It means everything is proved, although it's not in modern science. Everything is proved. Everything is factual. Everything is real. No faith. No, that's what they say. But just as much of a religion as anything else nowadays. But Krishna consciousness is a combination of the two. Because both simply come from Krishna consciousness. Science came from the Vedic science. There have always been scientists because there have been Vedic science in the beginning to produce all kinds of wonderful things for the satisfaction of people in general and Krishna especially. And there's always been religiosity, proper action. Both religion and science come from Veda. But now it is there in its separated form. Therefore, neither is doing very well. But when the two are combined again the way they belong, they are allowed to exist in their natural state, then you'll have very great spiritual science, which is what Krishna consciousness is. Yes?
What do you consider the things of growth in Krishna consciousness? Because you need to actually have some faith to practice this to see that it's true. A person who does not faith or he takes on fruit, he can also say that that's true.
He can say, but he will also say, for instance, the law of karma and reactions, this is all believing. But no, it's not so. There's law of cause and effect. You can see it in every single aspect of society. You can see it in every aspect of existence. Everything has an effect. Everything you do makes an effect. So law of karma is a little bit more advanced concept. It is not simply a faith. It's the same concept. Similarly, either It's either life is chemicals or it's the soul. If it's chemicals, then it has a beginning and an end. So that must be proven. Prove it. Make me a life. Just one little life. Even an egg or an ant. Anything tiny. Anything. Make a life. Any life. Go ahead. You cannot do it. Oh, I prove it. You cannot prove it. Show me one instance where it happened naturally, that a life came from chemicals. Can't do it. Then, who are you talking? This can't prove. And we say it's spirit soul. Prove that. All right. If it's not chemicals, that means that life did not start just at the time of birth. That means it was already existing before. And it will already exist in the future. Now we can show that. Nowadays many psychiatrists are making wonderful experiments, because it's become very popular, to do this reincarnation experiment, where they bring people back into past lives. And then they prove it's true by going and checking out all the details. So, that means life is not just a combination of chemicals, because these experiences are there from previous times. So, what do you do with that? Prove it wrong. And they can prove it right. So who says we have no proof? We definitely have scientific proof. That's only a few things, there are many things.
Some persons feel some
Yes, in the Ayurveda, there are maybe it's 14 symptoms of death, some number like that. There are 14 symptoms gradually coming to the point of death. And the Ayurvedic doctor knows each and every one of them as it occurs. And thus he prepares for the death of his patient very nicely. You're not supposed to die on a bed, you're supposed to die on the floor. Because if you die on the bed, you may be too attached. So the body should be in an uncomfortable situation at the point of death. And it should be surrounded with nice smelling flowers to make a nice atmosphere, some incense in the room, the ringing of a bell and kartals and kirtan. This is all in the Ayurveda, exactly how to die. But what was your question? The devotees know when they will die. Maybe. Depends. You can die by accident also. Just because you're a devotee doesn't mean. Maybe Krishna wants you. Has some business for you. But when the time of death comes, in a natural way, devotees are very aware. They know now the death is coming, so they prepare themselves nicely.
Can we really understand the philosophy of Shikha Maharaj, which is Ajitya Veda, before we became is that possible for us?
Sure, of course you can understand you're simultaneously one with and different from Krishna just by engaging in the service. Because when you satisfy Krishna by your service, you become pleased, therefore pleased. That's scientific. Where in science, if you work for the satisfaction of someone else and he becomes pleased, you're also pleased. That's science. In the material world, if you satisfy someone else, you're pleased when your senses are satisfied. Like if you do something for someone else, and the other person is very satisfied with you, and you're thinking, oh, isn't that nice? But you're doing that because you're thinking of the future sense gratification you will get out of it. Or you are a philanthropist, and you just like to do things for others, and then you feel good about it. You just feel good because now I've done this for others. You couldn't care less what the other person thought, if they enjoyed it or didn't enjoy it. That's just the feeling where one just glorifies himself. But in Krishna consciousness, when Krishna is pleased, we are automatically pleased. And that you can have direct experience of. In fact, that's what keeps one going forward in Krishna consciousness.
Can you accept these proofs karmists are giving regarding reincarnations?
Why not?
Because in these cases, people are saying how they remember just previous lifetimes.
Well, they know. Some of them remember many previous lifetimes.
Yes, in this regard I cannot understand. For example, it says that if one eats cow that will each death, he's going to suffer some heavy reactions, and I cannot put it together.
Sure, because there are many reactions people are getting. Taking birth and dying and suffering in between old age and disease, that's not a reaction. And not every reaction manifests immediately. It is not that, okay, you've done something sinful in this life, now immediately, next lifetime, reaction must come. Reaction, there are so many reactions you've got, built up from such a long period of time. So these reactions are going on. And at one point, then you start working on these new reactions. It's a lot of reactions. Can't imagine how many.
Because I understood for each head you should live one lifetime of cow. So maybe it happen later.
Well, you're trying to put the law of karma in a little box that you can understand. It's a very big thing. Huge.
I just thought after
The law of karma is talking about millions and billions of lifetimes.
I thought after I finished my lifetime.
But what you thought is not very important.
Yeah.
The problem is you think something, and then everything has to fit what you think. What I'm trying to say, it doesn't work the way you think. It works in another way. Yes.
That the worshipping of devotees is the lowest emotional level and obsession. If there is some higher level.
This is a complete misquote of the Ishopanishad. Those who are simply understanding Krishna as the deity and not understanding the devotees or Krishna's loving associates, etc., they are on the lowest level of pure devotees. Those who are on higher levels, they can see Krishna in the hearts of the devotees. And on still higher level, they see Krishna everywhere. But that does not mean that they disrespect the deity, because their Krishna is especially. But then when they look at the deity, they see the Supreme Lord personally. So for those who are very neophyte, they may see the deity, but they only see some statue. So for them, that's very low class. But still, it's not bad. They're at least worshiping Krishna. Those who are more advanced, they see Krishna personally. Yes.
Ljudi koji su doživjeli kliničku smrt tvrde da su osjećaju veliku sreću i blaženstvo kada se vrate nazad. Da li su oni vidjeli Krišnu ili šta su oni to mogli vidjeti tako ugodno i lijepo da se tako osjećaju nakon toga? Da, kad su doživjeli kliničku smrt.
Came back. No. What that is when you get free from the gross body. That's very nice. Because the gross body is so full of pain. So we've never experienced a situation where there's no pain. We only experience pain. So when you come out of the body, you'll find that, oh, you're free from something which was so much giving you trouble. Just like if somebody's always pushing on your arm. Not hard, but just always pushing. It starts to drive you crazy after a while, doesn't it? Not even hard, just pushing. All the time, pushing. You just go, stop it! So, similarly, this body is not just pushing in one place, it's pushing in all places. But we're used to it. We accept this struggle that we're undergoing as normal. And as soon as that's gone, oh, that's so nice. And in that platform of the mind, the subtle body, everything is much more brilliant. Because you're no longer looking through gross eyeballs, which filter everything and make it so much duller. The mental sight is so much more clear. Therefore, it looks very nice, very brilliant, very effulgent like that. Whatever way he wants to say. So, therefore, one feels very, like this, very free, kind of live. But that's not spiritual. And that's just a little step higher. That's subtle growth, the subtle matter. I mean. Can you imagine when you get to spirit what the experience is? It's unlimitedly times better.
Zato ljudi smatraju da je sa smuću se rješavaju svi problemi, da je to ugodno, da će se u stvari, da će onda im biti lijepo, u stvari greše, jer tako, jer oni, tek onda nastupa sve ostalo.
Yes, because they're thinking that all the problems come from the body. But that's a mistake, because all the problems really come from the mind. At the time of death, when one leaves this body, he brings with him the whole mental state that he had at the time of death. So these people who commit suicide, for instance, they don't know that when they pull the trigger or whatever it is, that the exact problems they had just before they died go with them in exactly the same way. And they realize it just after it's too late. So you can just imagine how frustrating that is. Right at the moment of death, they realize, wait a minute, I'm bringing all this with me. Oh no! And now, you've got no body to do anything about it with. You can't correct this. Formerly there were so many problems, they came from the body. But when one kills himself, then there's no way to correct those problems anymore. Ooh, how frustrating. Ooh. Therefore, suicide is considered the most sinful activity you could possibly do. Therefore, everybody should never do such a thing. So people think, all my problems will be finished. Because they don't have any understanding that there's mind, intelligence, false ego. These things go with you, life after life. Problem is ignorance here. We've got to give actual knowledge, scientific knowledge, so that people can understand what's actually going on. So much ignorance is there. People don't understand anything.
Dakle, da li postoji ovo, da sam čitala o bardu nakon smrti? Bardo stanje. Da li, dobro, mislim, koliko traje od jednog života do drugog, mislim, dok dobijemo drugog tijela, koliko je to
What?
Part of state.
Yes.
Part of the level between two birds.
Two birds.
How long will last this time?
That
Is true.
yes. Well, I don't know what you read, so I can't say if it's true. But there's definitely a time between the two bodies. That's true. And what happens in that time may be different according to the person. Some persons, they may be very simple. So they experience their karma at that time. Also answering your question. At that time, in between the two bodies, they are dragged down by Yamaraja's men, who wrap up the subtle body in a bag and drag it along hot sands. And dogs are biting at it. The reason why the subtle body is used because you can suffer much more in a subtle body than in a gross body. In the gross body, you can't suffer very much because after a while it dies. It's not very good for suffering. But the subtle body is much better for suffering because you can suffer and suffer and suffer and it never dies. So therefore, that time in between, when one is then put into all kinds of hellish, horrible conditions, he suffers like anything. Now, not everybody, but those who are really sinful, they get their karma right there on the spot. Otherwise, a normal person, then after those persons, they finish suffering like this, then they're put into some kind of animal body or something like that. Now, other persons, they will perhaps undergo different things. Some persons may experience some higher planetary system, or they will go up to some higher planet for a little while, then come back. Other persons may just simply leave the body and go to a new one.